Ryan Keller never imagined that saving his daughter's life would begin with a stranger climbing into his car during a rainstorm. He had $43 in his checking account, no insurance, and a little girl who needed heart surgery within the week. The woman who slid into his passenger seat wore a coat that probably cost more than his entire year's rent, and made him an offer that sounded insane. Pretend to be her boyfriend for one weekend, and she would pay for everything. He should have said no. He should have walked away. But when you are watching your child die, you stop asking questions about miracles. If you're watching from Manila, Seattle, or anywhere between, drop your city in the comments below and hit that like button. Let's see how far this story travels tonight. The fluorescent lights in Mercy General's parking garage buzzed like dying insects. Ryan sat behind the wheel of his 2009 Honda Civic with the engine off because he could not afford to waste gas. His phone screen glowed in the darkness, showing the same number it had shown for the past 20 minutes, $43.12. That was everything. His entire checking account, 3 weeks of unemployment, 2 missed rent payments, and one little girl who needed a surgery that cost more than he would earn in 5 years. Emma was upstairs on the 4th floor, asleep in a hospital bed that smelled like antiseptic and fear. 8 years old, brown hair that never stayed in a ponytail, a laugh that sounded like wind chimes, a heart that was failing. The cardiologist had used words like critical and deteriorating and without intervention. Ryan had nodded through all of it, pretending he understood, pretending he had options. Then the billing coordinator had slid a clipboard across her desk with an estimate that might as well have said $1 million. She had smiled, one of those tight, professional smiles that hospital staff perfect after years of delivering bad news, and suggested he look into financial assistance programs that would take 6 weeks to process. Emma did not have 6 weeks. Rain hammered against the windshield. Ryan watched water stream down the glass and wondered if this was what drowning felt like. Slow, inevitable, quiet. His phone buzzed. Another email from the electric company. Final notice. He deleted it without reading and shoved the phone into the cup holder. He had been a good father. He had tried. After Sarah died 3 years ago, he had restructured his entire life around Emma. He took the supervisor position at the steel plant because it paid better and had insurance. He worked doubles when they needed Christmas presents. He learned to braid hair by watching YouTube videos at 2 in the morning. He showed up. Every single day, he showed up. And it still was not enough. The plant had closed 4 months ago. Corporate restructuring, they called it. Ryan called it watching 30 years of American manufacturing get sold to a private equity firm that shut everything down and auctioned off the equipment. He had walked out with a severance check that evaporated within 6 weeks, and a stack of rejection letters from every factory, warehouse, and logistics company within 50 miles. Nobody was hiring. Nobody cared that he had 15 years of experience or a daughter who needed stability or a mortgage payment due next week. He leaned his head back against the seat and closed his eyes. Sarah would have known what to do. She always knew what to do. When Emma was born premature and the NICU bills piled up, Sarah had called every charity and hospital program in the city until someone said yes. When Ryan got injured on the job and missed 2 months of work, Sarah had taken a second shift at the diner and never once complained. She had been the strong one, the smart one, the one who figured things out. Ryan was just the guy who showed up and hoped that was enough. The passenger door opened. Ryan jerked upright, his hand instinctively reaching for the door lock, but it was already too late. A woman slid into the seat beside him, slammed the door shut, and sat there breathing hard like she had just sprinted across the entire parking garage. "Drive," she said. Ryan stared at her. "What?" "Drive. Now, please." She was maybe 30, drenched from the rain, wearing a black wool coat that looked absurdly expensive and heels that were not meant for running. Her hair, dark, shoulder length, soaked, stuck to her face. She was not holding a weapon. She did not look dangerous. She looked terrified. "Lady, I think you have the wrong car." "I don't." She twisted in the seat, glancing back toward the hospital entrance. "I know exactly whose car this is. Ryan Keller, 32, daughter named Emma. You've been sitting here for 40 minutes staring at your phone like it's going to magically generate money." Ryan's entire body went cold. "How do you—" "Drive first, explanations later." "I'm not going anywhere until you tell me who the hell you are." The woman turned to face him fully. Even soaked and clearly panicking, there was something sharp about her, something controlled. Her eyes were gray, not blue, not green, just gray, and they did not blink. "My name is Aurora Vale," she said, "and I'm about to make you an offer you cannot afford to refuse." Ryan's brain stuttered. Aurora Vale. The name was familiar in the way that skyscrapers are familiar, something you see on the skyline but never actually think about. Vale Industries, real estate, tech investments, billionaire. The kind of person whose face showed up on Forbes lists and charity galas. "You're joking." "I'm not." "What the hell is Aurora Vale doing in my car?" "Hiding from photographers," she said flatly. "There are 3 of them near the main entrance. I left through the service exit, and you were the only person sitting alone in a car with the engine off. Now drive, or we're both going to end up on the front page of the Tribune tomorrow." Ryan did not move. "This is insane." "Yes, it is. Drive anyway." Something in her voice, desperation, maybe, or exhaustion, made him turn the key. The Civic's engine coughed to life. He pulled out of the parking space, took the exit ramp down to street level, and merged into the rain-slicked traffic on Ashland Avenue. For 3 blocks, neither of them spoke. Aurora sat perfectly still, her hands folded in her lap, staring straight ahead like she was on her way to a board meeting instead of fleeing paparazzi in a stranger's car. Ryan finally broke the silence. "You want to explain what just happened?" "I was visiting a friend in the hospital," Aurora said. "Someone tipped off the press. I did not feel like being photographed." "So you climbed into a random car?" "Your car was not random. You just said—" "I lied." She turned to look at him. "I've been watching you for the past 2 hours, Ryan. I know who you are. I know why you're here. And I know you need money." The hair on the back of Ryan's neck stood up. "Are you some kind of stalker?" "I'm someone who does research." Aurora reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a phone in a waterproof case. She tapped the screen a few times, then held it up. Emma Keller, age 8, dilated cardiomyopathy. Needs a heart transplant or a ventricular assist device within the next 10 days, or her survival rate drops below 30%. Estimated cost of surgery and recovery, $470,000. You have $43 in your checking account, $600 in savings, no insurance, no job, and a credit score that makes you unqualified for any medical loan program in the country. Ryan nearly drove off the road. He jerked the wheel, swerved back into his lane, and pulled over to the curb so hard the tires screeched. "Get out!" Aurora did not move. "No. Get the hell out of my car." "Not until you hear my offer." Ryan's hands were shaking. He gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles went white. "I don't know what kind of sick game this is, but I'm not interested. Get out before I call the cops." "And tell them what?" "That a woman offered to save your daughter's life." "You don't know anything about my daughter." "I know she wants to be an astronaut," Aurora said quietly. "I know she builds telescope models out of paper towel rolls and duct tape. I know she writes you letters every night before bed, even though you're in the same apartment. I know she still talks to her mother sometimes when she thinks you're not listening." Ryan felt something crack inside his chest. He turned slowly to look at Aurora. Her face was calm, no smirk, no cruelty. Just facts delivered with surgical precision. "Who are you?" he whispered. "Someone who needs something you have," Aurora said, "and someone who can give you something you need." "I don't have anything." "You do." Aurora set her phone down on the center console. "I need a boyfriend." Ryan blinked. "What?" "I need someone to attend my family's annual gathering this weekend. Someone who will pretend to be in a serious, committed relationship with me. Someone who will be charming, respectful, and convincing. In exchange, I will cover every medical expense related to Emma's surgery, the device, the hospital stay, the recovery, all of it." Ryan stared at her like she had just started speaking a different language. "You're serious?" "Completely. You want to pay me $500,000 to pretend to be your boyfriend for a weekend?" "Yes." "Why?" Aurora looked out the windshield at the rain. "Because my family thinks I'm incapable of forming real relationships. They think I'm cold, emotionally unavailable, and destined to die alone surrounded by quarterly earnings reports. If I show up to this weekend's gathering without a date, again, My father will spend the entire time lecturing me about legacy and grandchildren and wasted potential. I'd rather avoid that conversation. So hire an actor. Well, actors are predictable. They perform. I don't need a performance. I need someone real. I'm not real, Ryan said bitterly. I'm a guy with $40 and a dying kid. I'm as fake as it gets. No, Aurora said. You're a man who lost his job, lost his wife, and kept showing up for his daughter anyway. You're a man who has been sitting in a parking garage for 40 minutes trying to figure out how to save her life with nothing but $43 and hope. That's not fake. That's the most real thing I've seen in years. Ryan shook his head. This is insane. Yes, I don't even know you. You don't have to. You just have to stand next to me at a few dinners and pretend you like me enough to tolerate my family. What if I say no? Aurora met his eyes. Then I'll get out of your car, you'll drive back to the hospital, and you'll keep trying to figure out how to save Emma with $43. Maybe you'll find a miracle. Maybe you won't, but that's your choice. Ryan's throat felt tight. He looked down at his hands. They were still shaking. I have conditions, he said. Name them. I don't lie about who I am. If your family asks, I tell the truth. I'm unemployed. I'm broke. I'm a single dad who has no business being in your world. I won't pretend to be something I'm not. Aurora studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded. Agreed. And Emma comes first. If she needs me, I leave. I don't care if we're in the middle of dinner with the president. If my daughter calls, I'm gone. Understood. Ryan exhaled slowly. When's the weekend? Starting Friday. We'll leave at 4. The estate is 2 hours north of the city. And you'll really pay for the surgery? I'll have the hospital billing department contact my assistant tomorrow morning. Everything will be handled. Ryan wanted to believe her. He wanted it so badly it hurt. But nothing in his life had ever been this easy. Nothing had ever just appeared and saved him. Why are you doing this? He asked. Aurora looked away. Because I'm tired of pretending I'm fine alone, and because Emma deserves a chance. You don't even know her. I know what it's like to lose someone you love, Aurora said quietly. I know what it's like to sit in a hospital and feel helpless. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. Ryan sat there in the rain-soaked car with a stranger who knew everything about him and offered him a deal that sounded like a fairy tale. He thought about Emma upstairs in that hospital bed. He thought about the way she had smiled at him this morning, even though she could barely keep her eyes open. He thought about the empty promises he had made her over the past 4 months, promises that everything would be okay, that he would figure it out, that she did not need to worry. He thought about how tired he was of failing her. Okay, he said. Aurora's expression did not change. Okay? I'll do it. You're sure? Ryan looked at her. You're going to save my daughter's life. I'll pretend to be the King of England if that's what it takes. Aurora almost smiled. Almost. I don't need a king. I just need you to be yourself. That's all I've got. Good. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a business card. My assistant's number. Call her tomorrow morning. She'll coordinate everything with the hospital and get you the details for Friday. Ryan took the card. It was embossed, heavy, the kind of paper that costs more than most people's groceries. This is really happening, he said. It is. I don't even know what to say. Aurora reached for the door handle. Don't say anything. Just show up Friday. And Ryan? Yeah? Thank you. She opened the door and stepped out into the rain. Within seconds, she disappeared into the storm, leaving Ryan alone in his car with a business card that weighed nothing and changed everything. He sat there for a long time, staring at the embossed letters on the card. Then he started the engine and drove back to the hospital, where his daughter was sleeping and dreaming of stars she might actually live long enough to see. Ryan did not sleep that night. He sat in the chair beside Emma's hospital bed and watched her breathe. Every rise and fall of her chest felt like a negotiation with the universe. The machines around her beeped in rhythms he had memorized weeks ago. Normal. Stable. For now. At 6 a.m, he stepped into the hallway and called the number on Aurora's card. A woman answered on the second ring. Her voice was crisp, efficient, the kind of voice that did not tolerate inefficiency or excuses. Vale Industries, this is Monica. Uh, Hi. My name is Ryan Keller. I was told to call this number. There was a pause. Then, Mr. Keller? Yes. Ms. Vale briefed me last night. I've already contacted Mercy General's billing department. They're expecting paperwork from our legal team this morning. All of your daughter's medical expenses will be covered under the Vale Foundation's charitable giving program. Ryan leaned against the wall. His knees felt weak. Just like that? Just like that. I'll also need your clothing sizes. Miss Vale has requested that a wardrobe be prepared for the weekend. I don't need... Mr. Keller, you're attending a formal family gathering at a private estate. Unless you own a tailored suit and dress shoes that cost more than a used car, you need the wardrobe. Sizes, please. Ryan rattled off numbers he was not entirely sure were accurate. Monica took notes without comment. A car will pick you up Friday at 3:45, she continued. Pack light. Anything you need will be provided. Do you have questions? Ryan had about 1,000 questions. He settled on the only one that mattered. Is this real? Monica's voice softened slightly. Ms. Vale doesn't make offers she doesn't intend to keep. You'll be fine, Mr. Keller. She hung up before he could respond. Ryan stood in the hallway for a long time, staring at his phone. Then he went back into Emma's room and sat down beside her bed. She was awake now, her eyes half open, her hair a tangled mess against the pillow. Morning, kiddo. Morning. Her voice was hoarse. She had been intubated twice in the past month, and her throat still had not recovered. You look terrible. Thanks. You look like a mop. She smiled. It was small and tired, but it was real. Did you sleep here again? Maybe. Dad? What? The chair's comfortable. It's a torture device. That's dramatic. Emma turned her head to look at him. Her eyes were too big for her face now. The weight loss made her look younger and older at the same time. Did something happen? Ryan hesitated. He had never been good at lying to her. Sarah used to say that Emma could smell dishonesty on him from 3 rooms away. Something good, he said carefully. I think. Maybe. That's very specific. I met someone who's going to help us. Emma's eyebrows lifted. Help how? Help with the surgery, the bills, all of it. She went very still. Dad, I know it sounds weird. Who is it? Her name's Aurora. She runs a big company. She has a charity thing that helps families like us. Emma studied him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. She had Sarah's ability to see through him. It was unfair that an 8-year-old could read him better than most adults. What do you have to do? She asked. What? Nobody just gives away that much money. What do you have to do? Ryan rubbed his face. I have to go to a family thing with her this weekend. That's it. A family thing. A dinner at her parents' house. Emma's eyes narrowed. Is she your girlfriend? No. Does she want to be? Emma. I'm just asking. She needs someone to go to this dinner with her, and I said yes. That's the whole story. Emma looked at him for a long moment. Then she said, Okay. Okay? If she's helping us, you should go. Just don't be weird. I'm not weird. You're extremely weird. I'm your father. I'm supposed to be weird. Emma smiled again. It was stronger this time. Promise you'll come back? Ryan leaned forward and kissed her forehead. I always come back. I know, but promise anyway. I promise. She closed her eyes. Within minutes, she was asleep again. Ryan sat there watching her until the nurses came in for rounds, and then he went downstairs to the cafeteria and drank coffee that tasted like regret. Friday arrived faster than Ryan expected. He spent the week fielding calls from hospital administrators who suddenly treated him like he mattered, signing paperwork he did not understand, and trying not to think about what he had agreed to. Emma's surgery was scheduled for the following Tuesday. The doctors were optimistic. That word, optimistic, felt dangerous. Like hope with fine print. At 3:45, a black sedan pulled up outside his apartment building. The driver was a man in his 50s wearing a suit that probably cost more than Ryan's entire wardrobe. He did not introduce himself. He just opened the rear door and waited. Ryan climbed in. The interior smelled like leather and money. They drove north out of the city in silence. Ryan watched Chicago disappear in the rearview mirror, the skyline shrinking, The buildings giving way to suburbs, then farmland, then nothing but trees and highway. He had not left the city in 3 years. It felt strange, like leaving a cage he did not know he was in. An hour into the drive, his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "There's a garment bag in the trunk. Change before we arrive. You'll find a bathroom at the estate gatehouse." Orion read the message 3 times. Then he looked at the driver. "There's a what?" The driver glanced at him in the rearview mirror. "Garment bag, sir. Ms. Vale had it prepared." "Right, of course she did." 20 minutes later, they pulled off the highway onto a private road that wound through dense woods. The trees were old, thick trunks, heavy branches, the kind of forest that felt like it had been there long before people and would be there long after. The road climbed steadily upward. Then the trees opened up and Ryan saw the lake. It was massive. Gray-blue water stretched to the horizon, bordered by dense forest on 3 sides and a sprawling estate on the 4th. The house, if you could call it a house, looked like something out of a European vacation brochure. Stone walls, tall windows, a cobblestone driveway that curved past manicured gardens and fountains that probably cost more than most people's homes. The car stopped at a small building near the front gate. The driver got out, retrieved the garment bag from the trunk, and handed it to Ryan without a word. "Bathroom's inside," the driver said. "Take your time." Ryan stepped into the gatehouse. It was nicer than his apartment. Marble floors, heated towel racks, a mirror that took up an entire wall. He unzipped the garment bag and stared. The suit was charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, with a white shirt and a tie that looked like it cost more than his car payment. The shoes were Italian leather. Even the socks looked expensive. He changed slowly, feeling like an imposter, with every button. The suit fit perfectly. Too perfectly. He looked at himself in the mirror and did not recognize the person staring back. He looked like someone who belonged in Aurora's world. He looked like a lie. When he stepped back outside, the driver nodded approvingly and opened the car door again. They drove up to the main house. Aurora was waiting on the front steps. Sans. She was wearing a dark blue dress that somehow managed to look both formal and effortless. Her hair was pulled back. No jewelry except small earrings. She looked exactly like the kind of person who owned a lakeside estate and thought nothing of it. "You clean up well, she said as he approached. "I feel like a fraud." "Good. That means the suit fits." "That's not comforting." Aurora's mouth twitched. It was not quite a smile, but it was close. "Come on, everyone's inside." She led him through the front door into an entryway that looked like a museum. High ceilings, marble floors, a chandelier that belonged in a palace, paintings on the walls that were probably originals. Everything was pristine. Everything was cold. "Your family lives here?" Ryan asked. "Only on weekends and holidays. My father keeps an apartment in the city." "This is a weekend house." "Yes." Jesus. Aurora glanced at him. "Second thoughts?" "About 1,000. Too late. They're waiting." She led him down a hallway into a sitting room where 3 people were gathered near a fireplace. An older man in a suit, a woman in a cashmere sweater, and a younger man, maybe late 20s, leaning against the mantel with a drink in his hand. The older man stood when they entered. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with silver hair and the kind of presence that made you stand straighter without realizing it. His eyes landed on Ryan and stayed there. "Father," Aurora said, "this is Ryan Keller. Ryan, this is my father, Edward Vale." Edward crossed the room and extended his hand. His grip was firm, evaluating. "Mr. Keller? Mr. Vale?" Ryan's voice came out steadier than he expected. "Thank you for having me." Edward's eyes flicked to Aurora, then back to Ryan. "Aurora tells me you work in manufacturing." "Worked," Ryan corrected. "Past tense. Plant closed 4 months ago." The room went quiet. The woman by the fireplace, Aurora's mother, Ryan assumed, set down her glass. The younger man straightened slightly. Edward's expression did not change. "I see," Edward said slowly. "And what are you doing now?" "Looking for work, raising my daughter, trying not to drown." Aurora stepped closer. Her shoulder brushed his arm. It was subtle, but deliberate. A signal. "Ryan's been dealing with some family matters," she said. "Medical issues. Nothing serious, I hope." The woman said, Her voice was softer than Edward's, warmer. Serious enough? Ryan said. He was not going to lie. That was the deal. My daughter needs heart surgery. We're managing. The younger man by the fireplace spoke for the first time. That's rough, man. Edward nodded slowly. It is. I'm sorry to hear that. Ryan waited for judgment, for the subtle dismissal, for the look that said he did not belong here. But Edward just gestured toward the seating area. Please, sit. Dinner won't be ready for another hour. Ryan sat on a couch that felt like sitting on a cloud. Aurora sat beside him. Her mother took the chair across from them. The younger man, who introduced himself as Marcus, Aurora's younger brother, stayed by the fireplace. So, Edward said, how did you and Aurora meet? Ryan had been expecting this question. He still was not ready for it. Hospital parking lot, he said. I was sitting in my car trying to figure out how to pay for my daughter's surgery. Aurora got in and told me she'd take care of it if I came here this weekend. The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus choked on his drink. Aurora's mother stared. Edward's eyebrows climbed toward his hairline. I'm sorry, Edward said slowly. Did you just say? That's not quite how it happened, Aurora interrupted. Her voice was calm, but Ryan could hear the edge underneath. Ryan's simplifying. I'm really not, Ryan said. That's pretty much exactly what happened. Aurora turned to look at him. Her eyes said, What are you doing? His eyes said, You told me not to lie. Edward leaned back in his chair. For a moment, Ryan thought he was angry. Then he started laughing. It was a deep, genuine laugh that filled the room. Well, Edward said, wiping his eyes, that's the most honest thing I've heard in this house in 20 years. Marcus grinned. I like him. Aurora's mother looked between Ryan and Aurora like she was trying to solve a puzzle. Aurora, is he serious? Completely, Aurora said quietly. And you're together? Aurora hesitated. Ryan could feel the weight of the lie pressing down on both of them. Then she said, Yes. Her mother studied them. Then she smiled. It was small, careful, but real. Well, that's unexpected. That's one word for it, Edward said. He looked at Ryan. You have children, Mr. Keller? One, Emma. She's 8. What's she like? Ryan felt his chest tighten. Talking about Emma always did that. Smart, funny, stubborn as hell, wants to be an astronaut, builds telescopes out of junk she finds around the apartment. She's the best thing I've ever done. Edward nodded slowly. You said she needs surgery. Yeah. And Aurora's helping. She is. Why? Ryan glanced at Aurora. She was watching him carefully. He turned back to Edward. I don't know. You'd have to ask her. Edward looked at his daughter. Aurora met his gaze without flinching. Because I wanted to, she said simply. Edward studied her for a long moment. Then he stood. Dinner should be ready. Let's eat. Dinner was exactly as uncomfortable as Ryan had imagined. The dining room was enormous, the table long enough to seat 20 people. The 5 of them sat clustered at one end like survivors on a life raft. The food was incredible. Some kind of roasted chicken with vegetables Ryan could not name, and wine that probably cost more than his monthly rent, but he barely tasted it. The conversation drifted between business, politics, and family gossip. Ryan stayed quiet, answering questions when asked, but mostly listening. He was good at listening. 15 years in a factory had taught him that silence was often safer than speaking. But Edward kept circling back to him, asking about his work, his life. Emma. It did not feel like an interrogation. It felt like curiosity. What did you do at the plant? Edward asked. Supervisor, quality control, mostly. Made sure the steel met spec before it shipped. And you enjoyed it? It paid the bills. I was good at it. That's enough. Is it? Ryan set down his fork. Mr. Vale, I've spent the last 4 months applying to every job within 50 miles. Factories, warehouses, logistics. Nobody's hiring. So yeah, a job that pays the bills and doesn't make me want to jump off a bridge is enough. Marcus snorted. Edward looked thoughtful. You're honest, Edward said. That's rare. Honesty's free. Can't afford much else. Aurora's hand found his under the table. She squeezed once. A warning or reassurance, Ryan could not tell. After dinner, Edward excused himself to his study. Marcus disappeared to make phone calls. Aurora's mother suggested a walk by the lake. Aurora agreed before Ryan could object. The three of them walked down a stone path that led through the gardens toward the water. The sun was setting, turning the lake into liquid gold. It was beautiful in a way that felt almost aggressive, like the world was showing off. "So," Aurora's mother said, "how long have you two been seeing each other?" "Not long," Aurora said. "And you didn't think to mention him?" "I wanted to be sure first." Her mother glanced at Ryan. "And are you?" "Sure." Aurora hesitated. Ryan jumped in before the silence became damning. "We're figuring it out," he said. "It's complicated. Most things worth doing are." Aurora's mother stopped walking and turned to face them. "Can I give you some unsolicited advice, Ryan?" "Sure." "My daughter is brilliant, successful, and terrified of being hurt again. If you're not serious about her, walk away now. Don't let her hope." Ryan looked at Aurora. She was staring at the lake, her face unreadable. "I'm not trying to hurt anyone," Ryan said quietly. "I'm just trying to keep my kid alive." Aurora's mother nodded slowly. "That's fair." She smiled. "I like you, Ryan. You're strange, but I like you." She walked back toward the house, leaving Ryan and Aurora alone by the water. For a long time, neither of them spoke. "Sorry about that," Aurora finally said. "About what?" "My mother. She's protective. She should be." Aurora turned to look at him. "You didn't have to tell them the truth. You told me not to lie. I didn't think you'd be that honest. I don't know how to be anything else." Aurora's expression softened. "That's going to make this harder." "Make what harder?" "Pretending." Ryan looked out at the lake. The sun had disappeared below the horizon. The water was dark now, still. "Yeah," he said. "I'm starting to realize that." They stood there until the cold drove them back inside, where the lights were warm and the lies were easier to maintain. Ryan woke up in a bedroom that was bigger than his entire apartment. The bed was enormous. The sheets felt like they cost more than his car, and the view through the floor-to-ceiling windows showed the lake stretching out toward a horizon that glowed with early morning light. For a few seconds, he forgot where he was. Then it all came back. The deal. The estate. The charade. He checked his phone. 6:30. A text from the hospital had come through at 5. Emma had slept through the night without incident. Vitals stable. No complications. Ryan exhaled slowly and set the phone down. He sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the lake. The water was calm, glassy. It looked peaceful. He hated it. A knock on the door startled him. "Yeah?" The door opened. It was not Aurora. It was Marcus, holding 2 coffee mugs and looking far too awake for 6:30 in the morning. "Morning," Marcus said. "Figured you might need this." Ryan took the mug. The coffee was black and strong. "Thanks." Marcus leaned against the doorframe. He was wearing running clothes, expensive running clothes, and looked like he had already been up for hours. "You sleep okay?" "Not really." "Yeah, the quiet up here messes with people. Dad says city folks can't handle the silence." "Your dad says a lot." Marcus grinned. "That he does." He took a sip of his coffee. "So, you and Aurora. What about us? How'd it really happen?" Ryan looked at him. Marcus's expression was curious, not hostile. There was something disarming about him. He did not have his father's intensity or Aurora's coldness. He just seemed like a guy who wanted to know the story. "She told you," Ryan said. "Hospital parking lot." "Yeah, but that's the headline. I want the details." Ryan drank his coffee and considered lying. Then he remembered the deal. No lies. "She needed someone to come here this weekend. I needed money for my daughter's surgery. We made a deal." Marcus whistled softly. "That's blunt. That's the truth. Does Dad know it's fake?" Ryan looked at him sharply. Marcus held up a hand. "Relax. I'm not going to say anything. I'm just asking." "Why?" "Because Aurora doesn't do relationships. She hasn't dated anyone seriously since Daniel died, and that was 5 years ago. So either she suddenly decided to try again, or this is something else entirely. I'm guessing it's the second thing." Ryan set down his mug. "Who's Daniel?" Marcus's expression shifted. The easy smile faded. "Her fiancé. He died in a car accident the week before their wedding. Aurora was supposed to be in the car with him, but she stayed late at the office. She's never forgiven herself for that. Ryan felt something cold settle in his chest. She didn't tell me. She doesn't talk about it, ever. Even Mom and Dad tiptoe around it. Marcus pushed off the door frame. Look, I don't know what kind of deal you two have, and honestly, I don't care. But if you hurt her, Dad will bury you. And if Dad doesn't, I will. I'm not trying to hurt anyone. Good. Marcus's smile returned, but it did not reach his eyes. Breakfast is at 8. Don't be late. Dad hates that. He left, closing the door behind him. Ryan sat there holding his coffee and staring at the lake. 5 years. Aurora had been carrying that for 5 years. The coldness, the distance, the walls. It all made sense now. He finished his coffee, showered in a bathroom that had a heated floor, and dressed in clothes that someone had left folded on a chair. Dark jeans, a sweater that felt like it cost more than his weekly grocery budget. He looked at himself in the mirror and felt the same wrongness he had felt the day before. He did not belong here. He did not belong in these clothes. He did not belong anywhere near Aurora's family. But Emma needed the surgery, so he went downstairs. Breakfast was served in a sunroom that overlooked the gardens. Edward and Aurora's mother, whose name Ryan had learned last night was Evelyn, were already seated. Aurora sat across from her father, reading something on her phone. She glanced up when Ryan entered. Morning. Morning. He sat beside her. A woman in a white uniform appeared from nowhere, poured him coffee, and asked if he wanted eggs. Ryan said yes because he did not know what else to say. The woman disappeared. Sleep well? Evelyn asked. Fine, thanks. Edward folded his newspaper and set it aside. Ryan, I wanted to ask you something. Ryan's stomach tightened. Okay. What are your plans after your daughter recovers? Ryan blinked. Plans? Work, life. You said you've been looking for a job. Yeah, nothing's panned out yet. What kind of work are you looking for? Anything that pays. I'm not picky. Edward studied him. You have management experience, quality control, logistics. That's valuable. Not valuable enough, apparently. Have you considered relocating? Ryan shook his head. Emma's doctors are in Chicago. Her school's there. Her friends. I can't uproot her right now. That's fair. Edward sipped his coffee. What if I told you I have a facility in the city that could use someone with your background? Ryan went very still. What? Vail Industries owns a metals processing plant on the south side. We've been looking for a new operations supervisor for the past 2 months. The last one retired. If you're interested, I'd be happy to arrange an interview. Ryan stared at him. You're offering me a job. I'm offering you an interview. Whether you get the job depends on whether you're qualified. I don't want charity. And I don't give it, Edward said flatly. If I didn't think you could do the work, I wouldn't waste your time or mine. You have 15 years of experience in an industry I own. That's not charity. That's practical. Ryan looked at Aurora. She was watching him carefully. Her expression gave nothing away. I don't understand, Ryan said. What's not to understand? Why you do this? Edward leaned back in his chair. Because my daughter cares about you. And because I like people who tell the truth even when it costs them something. That's rare. I value it. Ryan's throat felt tight. I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it. I'll think about it. Edward nodded. Good. He picked up his newspaper again. Now eat your breakfast before it gets cold. The eggs arrived. Ryan ate without tasting them. Aurora stayed quiet beside him. Her knee brushed his under the table once, briefly, and then pulled away. After breakfast, Aurora suggested a walk. Just the two of them. Ryan followed her out through the gardens, past the fountain, down the path toward the lake. The morning air was cold and sharp. His breath came out in clouds. I didn't know your father was going to do that, Aurora said. Do what? Offer you a job. Is it real? Yes. My father doesn't bluff. Ryan shoved his hands into his pockets. This is getting complicated. It was always going to get complicated. I thought we had a deal. 1 weekend. Emma's surgery, done. We do. The job offer doesn't change that. You can walk away after this weekend and never see any of us again if that's what you want. Ryan stopped walking. Is that what you want? Aurora turned to face him. The wind pulled at her hair. She looked tired. I don't know what I want. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Ryan looked out at the lake. The water was darker than it had been at sunrise, gray-blue and restless. Marcus told me about Daniel. Aurora went very still. Did he? Yeah. And? And nothing. I'm sorry that happened to you. Everyone's sorry. Sorry doesn't fix anything. No, Ryan agreed. It doesn't. Aurora wrapped her arms around herself. I don't talk about him. You don't have to. But you want to know. Only if you want to tell me. Aurora was quiet for a long time. Then she said, We were supposed to get married on a Saturday in June. He died on the Tuesday before. He was driving to meet his brother for dinner. A truck ran a red light. He died instantly. I was supposed to be in the car with him, but I stayed late at the office to finish a presentation. I chose work over him. I chose a PowerPoint over the man I loved, and he died alone because of it. Ryan did not say anything. There was nothing to say that would not sound empty. Everyone told me it wasn't my fault, Aurora continued. Therapists, friends, my parents. They said I couldn't have known, that I couldn't have stopped it. But they're wrong. If I had been there, we would have left 10 minutes earlier. 10 minutes. That's all it would have taken. He would still be alive. You don't know that. I know enough. Ryan looked at her. Her face was expressionless, but her hands were trembling. Is that why you don't let anyone in? Because you're afraid of losing them? Aurora's jaw tightened. I'm not afraid. I'm practical. People leave. People die. Love doesn't fix that. No, but it makes the time you have matter. Does it? Because from where I'm standing, love just makes the loss worse. Ryan thought about Sarah, about the way she used to laugh at terrible jokes, about the way she used to fall asleep on his shoulder during movies, about the way she fought the cancer until there was nothing left to fight with, about the hole she left behind that still had not closed. Yeah, he said quietly, it does make the loss worse, but I'd still choose it every time. Aurora looked at him. Her eyes were wet. She blinked, and the tears were gone. You're a better person than I am. I'm really not. You are. You lost your wife, and you kept going. You kept showing up for Emma. You didn't shut down. I didn't have a choice. Emma needed me. Everyone has a choice, Ryan. You chose to stay human. I chose to stop feeling anything. I don't think that's true. Why not? Because if you really didn't feel anything, you wouldn't have climbed into my car that night. You wouldn't have offered to help Emma. You wouldn't be standing here telling me about Daniel. Aurora looked away. Maybe I'm just good at pretending. Maybe. Or maybe you're not as cold as you think you are. A phone buzzed. Aurora pulled hers out of her pocket and glanced at the screen. Her expression shifted. I have to take this. Work? Always. She answered the call and walked back toward the house, her voice shifting into the clipped, professional tone Ryan had heard her use with her assistant. Ryan stood by the lake for a while longer. Then he walked back up the path, through the gardens, and nearly collided with Edward coming out of the house. Sorry, Ryan said. No harm done. Edward studied him. Walk with me? It was not really a question. Ryan followed him down a different path, one that led away from the lake toward a grove of trees at the edge of the property. They walked in silence for a few minutes. Then Edward spoke. Marcus told me he talked to you this morning. Yeah. He also told me he threatened you. Ryan almost smiled, a little. He's protective of his sister. We all are. I'm not going to hurt her. You already are. Ryan stopped walking. What? Edward turned to face him. Aurora hasn't brought anyone home since Daniel died. Not once. And now she shows up with you. A man she barely knows. A man who's honest to a fault. A man who looks at her like she's a person instead of a bank account. Do you know what that does to her? I'm not trying to... I know you're not. That's what makes it dangerous. Edward's voice was quiet but firm. Aurora built walls for a reason. You're breaking them down without even trying. And when this weekend ends and you go back to your life, she's going to be alone again. Except now she'll remember what it felt like to let someone in. Do you understand what I'm saying? Ryan's chest felt tight. You want me to back off? I want you to be careful. Aurora doesn't do well with loss. She's lost too much already. So have I. I know. Which is why I'm asking you to think about what happens after this weekend. Not for me. For her. Edward walked back toward the house. Ryan stood there in the grove of trees, staring at the ground and hating every part of this arrangement. That night there was a formal dinner. More guests this time. Business associates of Edward's. Friends of the family. People whose names Ryan did not catch and did not care about. He sat beside Aurora at a table that felt a mile long and smiled at the right times and nodded when people spoke to him and felt like he was drowning. Aurora played her part perfectly. She laughed at jokes that were not funny. She touched his arm when she talked. She looked at him the way couples look at each other when they have forgotten that other people are watching. It was a flawless performance. Ryan hated every second of it. After dinner, when the guests had moved to the sitting room for drinks, Ryan stepped outside onto the terrace. The air was cold and sharp and real. He stood there breathing and trying to remember why he had agreed to this. The door opened behind him. Aurora stepped out. You okay? Fine. You left pretty quickly. Needed air. Aurora leaned against the railing beside him. You're a terrible liar. Good thing I'm not lying then. Ryan, he turned to face her. This is harder than I thought it would be. I know. Do you? Because you're really good at this. The smiling, the touching, the acting like we're something we're not. You don't even flinch. Aurora's expression tightened. I've had practice. Right, because you did this with Daniel. That's not fair. None of this is fair. I'm standing here pretending to be your boyfriend while your father tells me I'm going to break your heart, and your mother looks at me like I'm some kind of project, and you act like none of it matters. It doesn't matter. Then why does it feel like it does? Aurora went very still. What are you saying? Ryan did not know. He did not know what he was saying or what he was feeling or why standing next to her felt like standing too close to a fire. He just knew that something had shifted, that the lines between fake and real were blurring in ways he had not expected. I don't know, he said finally. Aurora looked out at the lake. The moonlight turned the water silver. This was supposed to be simple. Yeah, it was. And now it's not. No. She turned to face him. Her eyes were gray and unreadable. What do we do? Ryan did not have an answer, so he said the only thing he could think of. We finish the weekend. We go back to our lives. We pretend this never happened. Can you do that? I don't know. Can you? Aurora did not answer. She just stood there looking at him like she was trying to solve a problem that did not have a solution. Then she stepped closer. Close enough that he could see the way her breath came out in clouds. Close enough that if he leaned forward, he could kiss her. He did not move. Ryan, she said quietly. Yeah? Thank you. For what? For being honest. For not pretending to be something you're not. For reminding me what that looks like. Before he could respond, the door opened again. Marcus stuck his head out. Hey, Dad's looking for you too. Something about dessert. Aurora stepped back. The moment broke. She walked back inside without looking at Ryan. He stood there for a few more seconds, staring at the lake and trying to remember how to breathe. Then he followed her inside, where the lights were bright and the lies were easier and nothing felt simple anymore. Sunday morning arrived with rain, not the violent storm that had brought Aurora into Ryan's car, but a steady, persistent drizzle that turned the lake gray and made the estate feel smaller somehow, trapped. Ryan woke early again, checked his phone, and found another update from the hospital. Emma's vitals were stable. Surgery scheduled for Tuesday at 7 in the morning. The message was clinical, impersonal, but Ryan read it 3 times anyway. He got dressed and went downstairs. The house was quiet. He found the kitchen, a massive room with marble counters and appliances that looked like they belonged in a spaceship, and made himself coffee. He was standing at the window watching rain streak down the glass when Aurora walked in. She looked different. Her hair was down. No makeup. She was wearing jeans and a sweater that looked soft and worn, like something she actually owned instead of something a stylist had picked out. She looked real. "Morning," she said. "Morning." She poured herself coffee and stood beside him at the window. For a while, neither of them spoke. The silence was not uncomfortable. It was just heavy with everything they were not saying. "We leave this afternoon," Aurora said finally. 3 o'clock. "Okay. My father wants to talk to you before we go. About the job." Ryan nodded. He had been expecting that. "Are you going to take it?" Aurora asked. "I don't know." "Why not?" Ryan looked at her. "Because it feels like I'm accepting something I didn't earn. My father doesn't offer things people haven't earned. If he thinks you can do the job, you can do it. Maybe, or maybe he's doing it because of you. Does it matter?" "Yeah, it does." Aurora set down her coffee. "Ryan, you're unemployed. You have a daughter who needs you. You have bills and debt and no way to pay for any of it. My father is offering you a real job with real pay doing work you're qualified for. Why is your pride more important than Emma's stability?" The words hit like a punch. Ryan felt his jaw tighten. "That's not fair." "You're married?" "It's completely fair. You're so busy trying to prove you don't need help that you're sabotaging yourself. Emma doesn't care about your pride. She cares about having a father who's there." I am there. I've always been there. And what happens when you can't afford rent anymore? When you get evicted? When you have to pull her out of school? Being there isn't enough if you don't have the resources to back it up." Ryan turned away from the window. "You think I don't know that? You think I haven't spent every night for the past 4 months lying awake trying to figure out how to keep us afloat? I know I'm drowning. I know I need help. But taking a job from your father because we spent a weekend pretending to date feels wrong. Why? Because it makes this transactional. It makes me feel like I'm being paid off." "You're being paid off," Aurora said flatly. "That was the deal. I pay for Emma's surgery, you come here and play boyfriend. That's a transaction. The job offer doesn't change that. It just gives you something after this is over." Ryan stared at her. "Is that really how you see this? As a transaction?" Aurora hesitated, just for a second. Then she said, "Yes." Ryan did not believe her. He could see it in the way she looked away, in the way her hands tightened around her coffee mug, in the way her voice did not quite match her words. "You're lying," he said. "I'm not. Aurora." "I'm not," she repeated, louder this time. "This is a deal. That's all it ever was. You needed money. I needed a date. We both got what we wanted." "Did we?" Aurora set her mug down hard on the counter. Coffee sloshed over the rim. "What do you want me to say, Ryan? That I enjoyed this? That I liked having you here? That for the first time in 5 years I felt like maybe I could be normal again? Is that what you want to hear?" "Only if it's true." Aurora's eyes were bright, angry, hurt. "It doesn't matter if it's true. Tomorrow you go back to your life, I go back to mine. None of this matters." "Then why are we fighting about it?" "Because you're making this harder than it needs to be." "I'm making it harder? You're the one who keeps pretending you don't feel anything." "Because I can't feel anything." Aurora's voice cracked. "Do you understand that? I can't. I spent 5 years building walls so I wouldn't have to feel anything ever again. And then you showed up and ruined it. You and your honesty and your daughter and your stupid refusal to pretend to be something you're not. You ruined everything." Ryan stood there staring at her. Aurora was breathing hard, her hands shaking. She looked like she wanted to run, like she wanted to take back every word. "I didn't mean that," she said quietly. "Yeah, you did." "Ryan, it's fine, I get it. This was a mistake." "That's not what I said." "It's what you meant." Aurora closed her eyes. "I don't know what I meant." Ryan picked up his coffee mug. It was cold now. He poured it down the sink. "Your dad wants to talk to me before we leave." "Where is he?" "His study, 2nd floor." "Thanks." He walked out of the kitchen without looking back. Behind him, he heard Aurora say his name, but he did not stop. He climbed the stairs, found the study, and knocked on the door. "Come in." Edward was sitting behind a desk that looked like it had been carved from a single piece of mahogany. He had reading glasses on and was looking at something on his computer. He glanced up when Ryan entered. "Ryan, good. Close the door." Ryan did. He sat in the chair across from Edward's desk and waited. Edward took off his glasses and set them aside. "I wanted to talk to you about the job. I'm listening." The position is operations supervisor at our Chicago facility. Salary is $90,000 a year plus benefits. Health insurance, retirement, the works. You'd be managing a team of 12 and reporting directly to the plant manager. It's real work, Ryan. I'm not inventing a position to make you feel useful. 90,000. Ryan had never made more than 60 in his life. He tried to keep his face neutral. That's generous. It's market rate for someone with your experience. The interview is Wednesday. Can you make it? Emma's surgery is Tuesday. I know. We'll push the interview to the following week. That gives you time to be with your daughter. Ryan leaned back in his chair. Why are you doing this? I already told you. Tell me again. Edward studied him. Because I spent 40 years building a company, and I've learned to recognize talent when I see it. You're smart, you're honest, you don't fold under pressure. Those are qualities I value. Also, my daughter seems to care about you, which is reason enough. She doesn't care about me. This whole thing is fake. Edward smiled slightly. Is it?
You know it is. I
know Aurora brought you here under unusual circumstances, but I've watched the two of you this weekend. The way you look at each other. The way she listens when you talk. The way you stood up for her at dinner last night when Richard made that comment about her company. That wasn't fake. Ryan had not even realized he had done that. Richard, one of Edward's business associates, had said something dismissive about women in tech. Ryan had responded without thinking. Aurora had gone very quiet. Richard had changed the subject. I was just being polite, Ryan said.
No, you were being protective. There's a difference. Edward leaned forward. Let me tell you something about my daughter. After Daniel died, she stopped letting people in. She stopped trusting anyone. She built this version of herself that was untouchable and efficient and completely alone. I've watched her push away every person who's tried to get close to her. Friends, colleagues, men who were interested. She's been ruthless about it. And then you showed up. She needed someone for the weekend. She needed someone who wouldn't hurt her, and for some reason she chose you. Ryan did not know what to say to that. Take the job, Edward said. Not for me, not for Aurora, for Emma. Give your daughter stability. Give yourself a future. Stop punishing yourself for needing help. Ryan looked down at his hands. They were rough from years of factory work, scarred, calloused. The hands of someone who was used to hard labor and harder luck. If I take the job, people will think I'm using Aurora. Let them think what they want. I don't want her getting hurt because of me. Then don't hurt her. I'm not trying to. I know, but you will. Because people always hurt the ones who care about them. Edward picked up his glasses and put them back on. The question is whether you hurt her by staying or by leaving. That's something you will have to figure out yourself. Ryan stood. Thank you for the offer. I'll think about it. That's all I'm asking. Ryan left the study and went back to his room. He packed his things, which did not take long since most of what he had worn this weekend was not actually his, and sat on the bed staring at the lake. The rain had stopped. The clouds were breaking apart. Sunlight cut through in shafts that turned the water silver. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Meet me by the lake. Ryan grabbed his jacket and went downstairs. He walked through the gardens, past the fountain, down the path to the water. Aurora was standing at the end of the dock, her arms wrapped around herself, staring out at the horizon. Hey, Ryan said. She turned. Her eyes were red. She had been crying. Hey. Ryan walked out onto the dock and stood beside her. The wood was wet from the rain. The water lapped quietly against the pilings. I'm sorry, Aurora said. For what I said in the kitchen, I didn't mean it. Which part? All of it. None of it. I don't know. She looked at him. I'm not good at this. At what? Feeling things. Letting people in. I spent so long shutting everyone out that I forgot how to let anyone see me. I see you, Ryan said. I know. That's the problem. Why is that a problem? Aurora turned back to the lake. Because in a few hours, you're going to leave. You're going to go back to Chicago, and I'm going to go back to my life, and none of this will matter anymore. And I'll be alone again. And I've gotten really good at being alone, but now I remember what it feels like to not be. And I hate you for that.
Ryan felt something twist in his chest. I don't want to hurt you. Then don't leave. Aurora, I know it's not fair to ask. I know we had a deal. I know this was supposed to be simple. She wiped her eyes. But nothing about this has been simple. Not for me. Ryan did not know what to say. He did not know what he was feeling or what he was allowed to feel or whether any of this was real. He just knew that standing next to Aurora felt like standing at the edge of something dangerous and inevitable. What do you want? He asked. I want to stop being afraid. Of what? Of losing people. Of being left behind. Of caring about someone and watching them disappear. She looked at him. I want to believe that maybe this time it could be different. Ryan thought about Emma, about how scared he had been when the doctor first said the word surgery, about how terrified he still was every time he walked into her hospital room, about how love and fear were so tangled together he could not tell where one ended and the other began. It's always scary, he said, caring about someone, letting them matter. There's no version of this where it doesn't hurt. Then why do it? Because the alternative is worse. Aurora was quiet for a long time. Then she said, I haven't been to Emma's hospital room yet. Ryan blinked. What? I told you I was going to visit her. I lied. I couldn't do it. I kept thinking about Daniel, about hospitals, about losing people. So I just paid the bills and stayed away. You don't have to visit her. I want to. I'm just scared. Of what? Of her asking me why I'm there. Of not having a good answer. Aurora looked at him. Can I come with you? Tomorrow, before the surgery. Ryan's throat felt tight. Yeah, of course. And if she asks who I am, I'll tell her the truth. Which is, Ryan did not know how to answer that. He did not know what the truth was anymore. So he said the only thing that felt honest. Someone who helped us when we needed it. Aurora nodded slowly. Okay. They stood there on the dock until the sun broke through completely and the lake turned blue again. Then they walked back to the house together, side by side. Not quite touching, but not quite separate either. At 3 o'clock, the car arrived. Edward and Evelyn stood on the front steps to see them off. Marcus gave Ryan a handshake that turned into a hug and whispered, Don't screw this up. Ryan did not ask what he meant. The drive back to Chicago was quiet. Aurora sat beside him in the back seat, working on her laptop, answering emails, being the version of herself that Ryan recognized from that first night in the parking garage. Cold, efficient, untouchable. But every so often, her hand would drift across the seat and her fingers would brush his. Just for a second. Just enough to remind him that the weekend had happened, that it had been real. When they pulled up outside Ryan's apartment building, Aurora closed her laptop. Thank you, she said. For what? For coming, for being honest, for not making me feel like I was crazy for asking. Ryan looked at her. You're not crazy. I feel crazy. Yeah, me too. Aurora almost smiled. Then she leaned forward and kissed him. It was quick, barely there, just a press of lips that lasted maybe 2 seconds, but it felt like falling off a cliff. When she pulled back, her eyes were wide, like she had surprised herself. I'll see you tomorrow, she said. At the hospital. Ryan nodded. He did not trust himself to speak. He got out of the car, grabbed his bag, and watched the sedan pull away. Then he climbed the stairs to his apartment, unlocked the door, and stood in the middle of his living room staring at Emma's drawings on the refrigerator and wondering what the hell he was supposed to do now. His phone buzzed. A text from Aurora. I meant what I said. I don't want to be alone anymore. Ryan stared at the message for a long time. Then he typed back. Neither do I. He hit send before he could change his mind. Then he sat down on the couch and waited for the world to make sense again. It never did. Monday morning came too fast. Ryan barely slept. He kept thinking about Aurora's text, about the kiss in the car, about the way she had looked at him on the dock and said she did not want to be alone anymore. He kept thinking about Emma's surgery tomorrow and the job interview next week, and the fact that his entire life had been turned upside down by a stranger climbing into his car during a rainstorm. He arrived at the hospital at 8. Emma was awake, sitting up in bed, working on a drawing. She had pencils scattered across the blanket and was concentrating so hard her tongue stuck out slightly. She looked better than she had in weeks.
The doctors had adjusted her medication and it was helping. For now. Hey, kiddo. Emma looked up. Her face lit up. Dad, you're back. Oh, of course I'm back. Where else would I be? I don't know. You were gone the whole weekend. It was weird. Ryan sat down in the chair beside her bed. What did you draw? Emma held up the paper. It was a spaceship, sort of. The proportions were wrong, and the wings looked like they had been added as an afterthought, but it was clearly meant to be flying toward a cluster of stars. That's beautiful. It's terrible, but I'm working on it. She set the drawing aside. How was the family thing? Complicated. Did you meet her parents? Yeah? Were they nice? Ryan thought about Edward offering him a job, about Evelyn watching him with careful curiosity, about Marcus threatening him and then helping him. Yeah, they were nice. Good. Emma picked up another pencil. Is she coming to visit me? Ryan's stomach tightened. Actually, yeah, she is. Today. Emma's eyes went wide. Really? Really? She wants to meet you. Why? Because she cares about you. She doesn't even know me. Not yet. Emma looked down at her drawing. What if she doesn't like me? That's not possible. Dad, I'm serious. You're impossible not to like. Emma did not look convinced. She fiddled with her pencil. What if I say something stupid? Then you say something stupid. Everyone does. You don't. Ryan laughed. I say stupid things all the time. Like what? Like agreeing to go to a fancy family dinner with people I don't know. Emma smiled slightly. Was it really that bad? It was weird, but not bad. Do you like her? The question caught Ryan off guard. He opened his mouth to answer and realized he did not know what to say. Did he like Aurora? Yes, but it was more complicated than that. It was tangled up with gratitude and guilt and something else he did not have a name for. Yes, he said finally. I do. Good, because if she's helping us, she's probably nice. She is. She's just not good at showing it. Why not? She's scared. Of what? Same thing everyone's scared of. Losing people she cares about. Emma thought about that. Then she said, Is she scared of losing you? Ryan did not know how to answer that, so he just said, Maybe. Emma went back to her drawing. Ryan sat there watching her and thinking about how much he had missed this. Just sitting with her. Not worrying about bills or surgeries or whether they would have a place to live next month. Just being her dad. His phone buzzed. A text from Aurora. I'm downstairs. Is now okay? Ryan's heart kicked. He texted back. Yeah, room 412. He stood up. Emma, Aurora's here. You ready? Emma's eyes went wide again. She looked down at herself. Emma's bouquet. I'm in a hospital gown. You look fine. I look like a sick person. You are a sick person. That's why you're in a hospital. Dad? What? She's not here to judge your outfit. Emma grabbed the blanket and pulled it up to her chin. Okay, I'm ready. But if this is weird, it's your fault. Noted. A minute later, there was a knock on the door. Ryan opened it. Aurora stood in the hallway wearing jeans and a sweater that looked expensive but not showy. Her hair was down. No makeup again. She looked nervous. Hi, she said. Hi, come in. Aurora stepped into the room. Her eyes went immediately to Emma. Emma stared back. For a moment, neither of them said anything. Then Emma said, You're really pretty. Aurora blinked. Then she smiled. It was small and surprised and completely genuine. Thank you. So are you. I'm in a hospital gown. Still counts. Emma relaxed slightly. Aurora walked over to the bed. Ryan stayed by the door, watching. I'm Aurora, Aurora said. I know. My dad told me about you. Did he? He said you're helping us with the surgery. Aurora glanced at Ryan. He nodded slightly. She looked back at Emma. I am. Is that okay? Yeah, it's really nice. Thank you. You're welcome. Emma studied her. Why are you helping us? You don't even know us. Aurora sat down in the chair Ryan had been using. That's a good question. Honestly, because your dad helped me with something, and I wanted to return the favor. What did he help you with?
He reminded me what it's like to be honest, to not pretend to be someone you're not. Emma tilted her head.
That's a weird thing to need help with, Aurora laughed. It was quiet but real. Yeah, it is.
Emma picked up one of her drawings and held it out. Do you want to see my spaceship? Aurora took the paper carefully. She looked at it for a long time. Then she said, This is really good.
It's not. The wings are wrong. The wings are creative. That's different. Emma's face lit up. You think so? I do. You know what? When I was your age, I wanted to be an astronaut too.
Really?
Really. I was obsessed with space. I read every book I could find. I built models. I had posters of the solar system all over my room. What happened? I grew up.
Decided business was more practical.
Do you regret it?
Aurora paused. Sometimes. Emma nodded seriously. My dad says sometimes you have to do things you don't want to do, but that doesn't mean you have to stop wanting the other thing. Aurora looked at Ryan. Her eyes were soft. Your dad sounds smart.
He is, except when he's being dumb.
Ryan cleared his throat. I'm standing right here. Emma grinned. Aurora smiled. And for a moment, the hospital room did not feel like a place where people came to be sick. It felt like a place where people came to be human. They spent the next hour talking. Emma showed Aurora all her drawings. Aurora told her about the estate and the lake and the way the stars looked at night when there was no city light pollution. Emma asked 1,000 questions. Aurora answered all of them without once checking her phone or looking bored or acting like she had somewhere else to be. Ryan watched from this corner of the room and felt something shift inside him. This was not fake. This was not part of the deal. Aurora was here because she wanted to be, and Emma was glowing in a way Ryan had not seen in months. Eventually, a nurse came in to check Emma's vitals. Aurora stood. I should go. Let you rest. Emma's face fell.
Do you have to?
I have some meetings this afternoon, but I'll come back, if that's okay.
Really? Really?
Emma looked at Ryan. Can she? Ryan nodded. Anytime. Aurora walked to the door. Ryan followed her out into the hallway. They stood there for a moment, not quite looking at each other. Thank you, Ryan said. For what? For doing that, for being here. You didn't have to.
I wanted to.
Aurora looked back toward Emma's room.
She's wonderful, Ryan. You've done an amazing job with her.
I've done the best I could. That's all anyone can do. Ryan wanted to say something else. Something about the kiss, about the text, about the fact that he had not stopped thinking about her since yesterday. But before he could find the words, Aurora's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and sighed. I really do have to go, but I'll be back tomorrow, before the surgery. You don't have to. I want to, Aurora said firmly. I'll be here. She left before Ryan could respond. He stood in the hallway for a long time, watching her disappear around the corner and wondering how someone could walk away and still feel so present. When he went back into Emma's room, she was smiling. I like her, Emma said. Yeah? Yeah, she's not like other grown-ups. She actually listens. What do you mean? Most grown-ups ask questions, but they don't really care about the answers. She cared. I could tell. Ryan sat down on the edge of the bed. Emma, can I ask you something? Sure. Would it be okay if Aurora was around more? After the surgery? When you're recovering? Emma looked at him carefully. Like, how much more? I don't know yet. Maybe a lot.
Is she your girlfriend?
I don't know. Maybe. Would that be okay? Emma thought about it. Then she said, Do you like her? Like, actually like her? Yeah, I do. Does she make you happy? Ryan thought about Aurora standing on the dock, about the way she had cried in the kitchen, about the way she had looked at Emma like she was something precious. Yeah, she does. Then it's okay. Emma smiled. I think Mom would like her. Ryan's throat tightened. You think so? Yeah, Mom always said you needed someone who would call you on your stuff. Aurora seems like she would do that. Ryan laughed despite himself. She definitely does. Emma yawned. The medication was kicking in. Her eyes were getting heavy. Dad? Yeah? I'm glad you went to that dinner thing, even if it was weird. Me too, kiddo. She fell asleep a few minutes later. Ryan sat there watching her breathe and thinking about how close he had come to losing her, how close he still was. Tomorrow's surgery was not a guarantee.
It was a chance, a hope, a roll of the dice with his daughter's life on the line. But at least now there was a chance. At least now they were fighting instead of just waiting to lose. Tuesday morning arrived cold and gray. Ryan had not slept at all. He sat in the waiting room at 5:30 in the morning, drinking coffee that tasted like cardboard, and staring at the clock on the wall. The surgery was scheduled for 7. Prep started at 6. He had already said goodbye to Emma 3 times. She had been groggy from the pre-op medication, but she had smiled at him and said, "See you in a bit, Dad." Like she was going to school, like this was normal. At 6:15, Aurora walked into the waiting room. Ryan stood. "You came." "I said I would." She was wearing the same jeans and sweater from yesterday. Her hair was pulled back. She looked like she had not slept either. "How are you doing?" "I don't know. Ask me in 6 hours." Aurora sat down beside him. She did not say anything. She just sat there. Present. Real. After a few minutes, she reached over and took his hand. Ryan looked down at their joined hands. "You don't have to stay." "I know. This could take all day." "I don't care." Ryan squeezed her hand. "Thank you." "Stop thanking me." "I don't know what else to say." Aurora leaned her head against his shoulder. "Then don't say anything." They sat like that for hours. Nurses came and went. Other families arrived. The waiting room filled with the quiet anxiety of people hoping for good news. Ryan's phone buzzed periodically with updates. Surgery started on time. Incision made. Device being placed. Everything normal. At one point, Edward called. Aurora answered and stepped into the hallway. Ryan could not hear the conversation, but when she came back, she said, "My father says Emma's going to be fine. He said kids are tougher than we think." "He doesn't know that." "No, but it helps to hear it anyway." At 2:30, the surgeon came out. Ryan stood so fast he almost knocked over his coffee. Aurora stood beside him. The surgeon was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and gray hair. She pulled down her surgical mask and smiled. "Mr. Keller?" "Yeah, that's me. How is she?" "She's stable. The device is in place and functioning well. She tolerated the procedure beautifully. We're moving her to recovery now. You'll be able to see her in about an hour." Ryan felt his knees go weak. Aurora caught his arm. "She's okay?" "She's okay," the surgeon confirmed. "We'll monitor her closely for the next few days, but everything went exactly as planned. She's a fighter." "Yeah, she is," Ryan said. His voice broke. "She is." The surgeon left. Ryan sat down hard. Aurora sat beside him. He put his face in his hands and cried. Not because he was sad, because he had been holding his breath for 4 months, and he could finally exhale. Aurora put her arm around him. She did not say anything. She just held him while he fell apart. And when he finally pulled himself together, she handed him a tissue and said, "She's going to be fine." "I know." "You did it, Ryan. You saved her. We saved her." Aurora smiled. "Yeah, we did." An hour later, they were allowed into recovery. Emma was asleep, hooked up to machines that beeped steadily, but her color was better. She looked peaceful. Ryan stood beside her bed and held her hand and whispered, "You're okay, kiddo. You're okay." Aurora stood by the door watching. When Ryan looked over at her, she was crying. Not sobbing, just quiet tears running down her face. "You okay?" Ryan asked. Aurora nodded. "Yeah, I just forgot what this felt like." "What?" "Hope." The next 3 days were a blur. Emma woke up groggy and confused, but otherwise fine. The device was working. Her vitals were strong. The doctors were optimistic in a way that felt real this time, instead of cautious. Ryan barely left her side. He slept in the chair beside her bed. He helped her eat. He read to her. He did everything he used to do when she was small and sick with a cold, except this time the stakes were so much higher. Aurora came every day. She brought books. She brought drawing supplies. She brought terrible hospital cafeteria coffee and sat with Ryan while Emma slept. They did not talk much. They did not need to. Just being there was enough. On Friday, Ryan's phone rang. It was Monica, Edward's assistant. "Mr. Keller, your interview has been rescheduled for Monday at 10. Can you make it?" Ryan looked at Emma. She was sitting up in bed, working on a new spaceship drawing. Her color was good. Her energy was coming back.
The doctor said she could go home by Sunday if everything stayed stable. Yeah, Ryan said. I can make it. Excellent. I'll send you the details. When he hung up, Emma looked at him.
What was that? Job interview. For a real job. Where? A plant on the south side. It's close. I'd be home every night. Emma smiled. That's good. We need the money. Yeah, we do. Aurora, who had been sitting quietly in the corner, said, You're going to do great. Ryan looked at her. How do you know? Because you always do. On Sunday,
Emma was discharged. Ryan signed a mountain of paperwork, scheduled follow-up appointments, and carried Emma out to the car like she was made of glass. She protested the whole way. Dad, I can walk. I know. Humor me. They drove back to the apartment. Aurora followed in her own car. When they got upstairs, Emma immediately went to her room to look at all her stuff. Ryan stood in the living room and stared at the refrigerator covered in drawings and the couch that sagged in the middle and the stack of bills on the kitchen table. It was small and worn and barely holding together, but it was home. Aurora came up behind him. You okay? Yeah, just tired. You should sleep. I will, later. Aurora looked around the apartment. It's nice here. It's a mess. It's lived in. That's different. Ryan turned to face her. Thank you for everything, for the surgery, for staying, for being here when I needed someone. Aurora stepped closer. Ryan, I didn't do this because of the deal. I stopped doing this because of the deal about 3 days ago. Then why did you do it? Because I care about you. And Emma. And because somewhere between the parking lot and the lake house and the hospital, I stopped being scared. Ryan felt his heart kick. Aurora, I know this is complicated. I know we barely know each other. I know you have a daughter and a life, and I'm still figuring out how to be a normal person. But I want to try. I want to see where this goes. If you want that too. Ryan looked at her, at the woman who had climbed into his car during a rainstorm and changed his entire life. At the woman who had sat with him in a waiting room for 8 hours and cried when Emma woke up. At the woman who looked at him like he was worth something. Yeah, he said. I want that too. Aurora smiled. It was real and unguarded and beautiful. She kissed him. Not quickly this time, not like she was afraid. Just slow and certain and full of something that felt a lot like hope. When they pulled apart, Emma was standing in the doorway of her room, grinning. I knew it, she said. Ryan laughed. Get back in bed, kiddo. Can Aurora stay for dinner? Ryan looked at Aurora. She nodded. Yeah, she can stay. Emma disappeared back into her room. Aurora took Ryan's hand. They stood there in the middle of his small, messy apartment, and for the first time in years, Ryan felt like maybe everything was going to be okay. Monday's interview went better than Ryan expected. The plant manager asked tough questions. Ryan answered honestly. He did not pretend to know things he did not know. He did not oversell himself. He just told the truth about who he was and what he could do. At the end of the interview, the manager shook his hand and said, You'll hear from us by Wednesday. Ryan heard from them Tuesday. He got the job. He called Aurora immediately. She answered on the second ring. Well, I got it. She screamed, actually screamed. Ryan had never heard her make a sound like that. Then she laughed. I told you that you would. Yeah, you did. We should celebrate. Dinner. Somewhere nice. I can't afford somewhere nice. I can. My treat. Aurora. Ryan. Let me do this. Please. He smiled. Okay. But Emma comes too. Obviously. 6 months later, the world looked completely different. Emma was healthy. The device was working. She was back in school, back to building telescopes, back to being the loud, stubborn, brilliant kid she had always been. Ryan was working at the plant. The pay was good. The work was steady. He was not rich, but he was not drowning anymore either. And Aurora was there. Not all the time. She had her own life, her own company, her own responsibilities. But she came to dinner twice a week. She helped Emma with her science projects. She taught Ryan how to cook something other than mac and cheese. She fit into their lives in a way that felt natural and earned. One evening in late July, the three of them drove up to the lake house. Edward and Evelyn had invited them for the weekend. Marcus was there too. It felt less like a performance this time, more like family. After dinner, Ryan and Aurora walked down to the dock. The sun was setting. The lake was calm. The air smelled like pine in summer. "You know what's weird?" Aurora said. "What?" "I used to hate coming here. It always felt like a place where I had to pretend to be someone I wasn't. But now it just feels like home." Ryan put his arm around her. "That's because you stopped pretending." "I stopped pretending because of you." "I think you would have stopped eventually." "Maybe, but you made it easier." They stood there watching the sun disappear below the horizon. Behind them, they could hear Emma laughing at something Marcus had said. It was a good sound, a sound that meant safety and stability and a future that was not built on fear. "You ever think about that night?" Aurora asked. "When I got in your car?" "All the time." "Do you regret it?" Ryan thought about everything that had happened since then. The fear, the uncertainty, the way love had crept in when he was not looking and changed everything. "No. Do you?" "Not even a little." Emma came running down the path. "Dad, Aurora! Uncle Marcus says we can build a fire and roast marshmallows." Ryan looked at Aurora. She was smiling. "Uncle Marcus?" Emma shrugged. He told me to call him that. Is that okay?" "Yeah, kiddo, that's okay. Emma ran back toward the house. Ryan and Aurora followed slowly, hand in hand, not in any hurry to get anywhere because for the first time in a long time, they were exactly where they wanted to be. The truth was, Ryan had spent years believing that love was something that happened to other people. People with more money, more stability, more of everything he did not have. He had spent years thinking that his job was just to survive, to show up for Emma, to keep moving forward even when forward did not feel like progress. But Aurora had taught him something. She had taught him that love was not about being perfect or having everything figured out. It was about being honest, about letting people see you even when you were scared, about choosing to stay even when leaving would be easier. It was about showing up, not just for the good days, but for the hard ones too. And maybe that was the point. Maybe life was not about avoiding pain or protecting yourself from loss. Maybe it was about finding the people who made the risk worth taking. The people who saw you at your worst and stayed anyway. The people who climbed into your car during a rainstorm and changed everything. Ryan did not know if he and Aurora would last forever. He did not know if Emma would grow up to be an astronaut or if the device in her chest would work for 5 years or 50. He did not know if he would keep the job or if someday he would lose everything again. But he knew that right now in this moment, he was happy. And that was enough. That was more than enough. That was everything. Because sometimes the most unexpected people become the ones who save your life. And sometimes saving someone else's life is what saves your own. And sometimes the best thing you can do is stop pretending you have it all together and just let someone in. That was what Ryan had learned. That was what Aurora had learned. And that was what they were teaching Emma. That love was not about being fearless. It was about being brave enough to be afraid and choosing to love anyway. And as they stood together on the dock, watching the stars appear one by one above the lake, Ryan realized that for the first time since Sarah died, he was not just surviving, he was living, and that made all the difference.